to Punch Card Investing, a weekly show dedicated to all things value investing. Whether it be analyzing companies, pitching ideas, or discussing moves by the best investors in the world, we're trying to get one step closer to punching an investment off of our cards. Let's get started.
Let's get started talking about bank runs. This is really not okay. Thanks, intro man. Always coming in. So it's just Tom and I to kick this one off, but the one and only after dinner investor, Jason himself, will be arriving shortly. And it'll be our trio today. But man, what a wild couple days here in the world of banking. Silicon Valley Bank just announced, or I don't know if they announced, but the government announced that the FDIC, Federal Depository Insurance Corporation, whatever it's called, just took over the bank. They had a bank run, and we'll talk about that and the implications of that potentially, and also what we can learn from it, because there's always something to learn in these sorts of, we'll just call them no good events. What we can learn for looking at future companies, future banks, future exposures. It's always good to see what you can learn out of a otherwise bad situation. And Godspeed to anyone who has deposits with them or any companies as well. So before we get into that, of course, be sure to check out all of our stuff in the description below. We got our discount links to ShareSite and Seeking Alpha down there. If you sign up using those links, you can try out the free versions there as well. But if you end up switching to a premium version, we might make a nice little commission there. So go a long way towards helping the channel. And ideally, you'll have a nice little product there that you can enjoy. Seeking Alpha has all sorts of financial news on different stocks and also exclusive articles as well on all sorts of companies. So it's a good research tool, potentially, depending on what you're trying to do, since they do cover a lot of otherwise undercovered stocks, especially in our little value corner. And then also with ShareSite, that's a more broad application, I would say, in that you can track your whole portfolio using it. And I know, Tom, you're a longtime user of ShareSite for all your tax prep as well, so it's helpful for that too. So check that out. Again, there's a free version for both of those apps, and you can get a discount using our link below. And like, comment, subscribe. Of course, how could I forget to ask you to do that? That helps us most of all. So if you haven't done that already, please do that. Subscribe especially so you don't miss future episodes. If you, for some reason, enjoy hearing us talk about whatever we talk about every single week. Tom, how have you been?
Been pretty good, Jack. Just been kind of watching the action with Silicon Valley Bank recently, and it seems to have kind of flowed on across a lot of banks. I think some of the bank indices have been down a lot recently, so it seems like general fear spreading a little bit in the sector. So it's been interesting to watch.
When you look at a crisis like this, does it feel a lot smaller now that you have dad duties and that, every problem is just, who cares now? Everything's smaller than this. Do you get a little bit of that perspective now?
Yeah, a little bit.
You're supposed to say yes, absolutely. I don't care about any crises anymore.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be an evolving thing. I don't quite know. We'll see.
You mean the perspective? Well, crises will become worse now as your kid grows.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I still lay awake at night sometimes thinking about stocks, so it hasn't completely changed. But priorities certainly move around.
Toss and turn, thinking about Thor, thinking about that backlog, thinking about revenues.
Yeah, that backlog's not very big anymore. But that's not the topic. That's not the topic.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Keep you up at night. But bank runs. I know you were doing a lot of bank studying. Thinking about banks at all when you're during your sleepless nights?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it's gotten, like I say, the Silicon Valley Bank run and failure has kind of made a lot of banks come down in price a fair bit recently. So that gets interesting, assuming that you don't think this is going to be some nationwide, beginning of bank runs left and right or something.
I think I saw it's the second biggest in U.S. history for like a proper bank like takeover or collapse, whatever you want to call it. So it's kind of a weird situation because it's not technically collapsed because since the 30s in the U.S. There's all these backstops put in place to where a lot of We'll just say that the gains are privatized and the losses are publicized or socialized. So you have like the FDIC now, which theoretically is a backstop for a lot of people. They insure. They say they insure up to $250,000 per customer in deposits. So the small guys should theoretically be fine here. But some of these bigger accounts, if they end up going completely insolvent, which it doesn't seem like they are yet, it's this weird situation where you had a bank run. They're not necessarily insolvent totally. They have assets potentially they can liquidate and get away all right. But it's more like a timing issue, it seemed, just with instant liquidity that they didn't have at the time. Since I saw something like 30% of their deposits were called in like a day. So pretty much, I mean, very few banks, if any, are going to have that kind of liquidity that quickly. So I know they were trying to raise money, sell off their bond portfolio further than they already were. I'm trying to kind of get in ahead of ourselves, but maybe we should try to set the scene a little bit more of kind of what happened here. And I know you've been doing some research on it, Tom. I'm pretty new to it today, but it is an interesting situation just because it's thankfully pretty rare and ideally it won't become more common, but you mind setting the scene a bit on kind of how we got here?
Yeah. I mean, long story short, they ran out of money or ran out of equity at least.
Cash.
Well, they ran out of equity, I would say, initially. That sort of terrified everyone.
Sure.
When Silicon Valley Bank came out halfway through a quarter and said they were going to try and raise some money. And then banks are very leveraged entities by their nature. They don't have a very high proportion of their assets in cash. You know, it's not uncommon for banks to be leveraged, say, 10-1 in terms of assets to equity, and a lot of those assets are loans or maybe securities portfolios, a lot of which can't immediately be turned into cash if all your depositors want their money back. So I didn't realize it was 30% in a day, like you said, but
that's what I saw. Don't quote me there, but
there'd be very few banks on the planet, I would say, that could have the cash lying around to fund that. So that's pretty nuts. But what essentially caused it was Silicon Valley Bank, if I can just find the figures in the annual report here.
You mean their balance sheet where they're
funding
seemingly high balances?
So a couple of weird things happen. If you look through their cash flow statement, actually, in their annual report, which just came out quite recently, earlier in the year, they had in 2021 this massive purchase of what they call HTM securities, which I believe means held to maturity securities. Just for some context, in 2020 they had a cash outflow of a little under $7 billion towards those securities. In 2022, so skipping forward a couple of years, it was a little under $5 billion. But in 2021, they poured $85.5 billion into those held-to-market securities, a lot of which were long-term bonds. That was more or less like the peak of the bond market. So they incinerated a fair bit of equity through doing that. And if you look at their latest balance sheet, if I can find it, there's weird kind of accounting nuance, it seems, with these held to maturity securities. And I need to give a shout out to a tweet I'm sure a lot of people on Twitter have seen, at Raging Ventures shorted Silicon Valley Bank in January and laid this all out, and that's pretty legendary status at this point because he was perfectly right. But there's a weird accounting nuance where on the balance sheet for Silicon Valley Bank, those held to market securities don't need to be stated at their mark to market value. Like if you were to liquidate those bonds and what have you at the time, they can be stated at cost. And since Silicon Valley were down quite substantially on that bond position, that wasn't necessarily being reflected in their balance sheet. So just to run through the numbers, Silicon Valley Bank at cost had $91 billion in those bonds as of their 10K, which I think is more recent than that tweet thread you're looking at. Fair value was only 76. So 76 versus 91 is about a $15 billion hole there. As of this 10K release, Silicon Valley Bank only had 16.3 billion of equity using that higher number. So you suddenly go from like 16 billion in equity to 1. And these guys have got like over 200 billion in assets, loans and various securities and things. So they for whatever reason made a huge bet on bonds at a terrible time. It incinerated a lot of equity. They tried to raise some equity. It scared people. People stopped. People kind of pulled their money out, and it all just fell apart. So that's more or less how it went down, as I understand it.
Yeah, I'm curious what's going to happen now. Now the government stepped in. Like, there is a chance that this is kind of remedied in the next week or even days. But then again, this could drag on. But there's a lot of money tied up because I think right now, I mean, it's effectively like in receivership, like everything's kind of frozen. At least that's my understanding. Once the FDIC steps in, because they don't want more money leaving, want to make sure that they can kind of sort everything out. So I'm kind of curious what's going to happen, what the government will tell them to do, whether there's going to be some backstopping coming in from anywhere, the Fed or some federal agency or whatever it is, including the FDIC, I guess. So it's not like it's all over, but it is a disturbing sign given just the size of this and then also how many companies just have money with SVB, and maybe that's where some opportunity is. It's not actually in the bank itself, but it's in all the companies that have money tied up there. If you believe that this is just that most of the depositors will be all right in the end, which, I mean, we'll see who takes a haircut, if anyone. But maybe that's where the opportunity is. It's people who are reacting to the news that, oh, you have funds with SVB, sell this stock. And maybe that's going to create like a little episode for some of these companies that have plenty of liquidity outside of SVB. Just an idea. I haven't done any research into that, but maybe that's a potential opportunity here just in the near term.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, just to keep running through some numbers here, because there's huge amounts of dollars tied up.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So as of what date's this? As of the end of December 2022, Silicon Valley Bank had $195 billion in liabilities. So some of that's going to be long-term debt. So bondholders and so on will have to see if they can get anything back. I haven't looked at the prices this morning, but as I understand it, Silicon Valley bond prices are down a lot for obvious reasons.
One would think.
But 173 billion of that 195 billion is deposits. So a lot of money tied up there from a lot of companies in Silicon Valley, predominantly, obviously. So
yeah, and then if we'll call it 30% or however many actually got out, you wonder what it's at now. I'd assume quite a bit lower. I highly doubt it's any higher than that.
Yeah, for sure.
Now it begs the question, kind of, is there anything to learn here? Is this just kind of a banking nuance? Is there something we can apply to the companies? I guess one thing I hadn't even really given thought is where are companies banking? That actually is a valid concern that I had never really even thought of. Because if a company has all of its cash with one bank and they need that cash all of a sudden, you could be in some trouble in this weird situation, however rare it might be. So it's something I never gave thought until kind of this.
Yeah. I know Berkshire, for example, mostly has their idle cash in treasuries. So
yeah, right.
That avoids most of that issue. But
separate issues. But yes.
But
yeah, for just actual pure cash holdings, I wonder if that's kind of a big reason why companies do that. Just
I think it is for sure.
Yeah, if you're going to make just basically no interest anyways, might as well have it insured by the government than some bank that is only partially insured by the government. It's probably something like that. Yeah. Makes a lot more sense now when you look at it this way.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, other lesson for me that jumps out, I mean, like I say, banks are very leveraged by nature, but even before the bond kind of catastrophe, Silicon Valley Bank were leveraged about 13-1. If you use maybe 10 as a bit of a rule of thumb, that's a little more than usual, but not crazy. Like, in 2007-8, we were seeing like north of 20 times leverage, and that was one of the reasons a lot of entities blew up in the financial crisis. The other thing is, like, I think in that Raging Capital tweet, the bond portfolio increased like 700% or something versus the prior period of time. So just
700.
Yeah, those sorts of things should jump out to you, hopefully, as you're reading through financial statements, trying to look at things.
Let's see. They increased their security portfolio by 700% at a generational top in the bond markets when rates were the lowest, buying 88 billion of mostly 10+ year mortgages with an average yield of just 1.63%.
That's crazy.
My goodness. I wonder what the thinking was there. Just because rates are already so low, are you guessing they'll go even lower and you get some appreciation, you get out? I don't understand why would you even do a long-term bond like that at that super low rate unless you're betting on negative interest rates or something.
Yeah, and to do it with more than a third of your assets.
Yeah, that just isn't. I don't know what the thinking is there. This is with the benefit of hindsight, of course, but I remember at the time a lot of people calling it return-free risk, where you're putting money into bonds to get no yield, waiting for what exactly? Negative interest rates or something crazy like that, which, I mean, it could have happened, but when you're putting this many billions at stake, just seems like a weird move. But I guess it was overlooked by a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess you could say the same thing with a lot of companies, but particularly with financials, which I think I said on Twitter this morning, do have more potential than most companies to randomly implode if they do dumb stuff like this. Randomly. It's, I don't know. You want to see an element of consistency around how our management company manages their assets and liabilities in a financial company over time. So to see a big, an enormous jump up in how their assets are kind of allocated should be a red flag.
And I just don't understand the long term. Like, why were they doing the long term bonds? Because it gives even less flexibility than just letting it roll over. And then of course they're pricing it with their, here's the price if we held it to maturity sort of thing that we just talked about in the balance sheet.
Yeah,
I don't want to. I don't think it was a scheme by any means, but it has kind of that flavor to it. Just the way they're showing it on their balance sheet. Just seems a bit odd. I don't know if we're missing some detail here, but maybe not. It could just be a classic bank run. We'll leave it at that, with a little bit of mismanagement in the middle. Yeah,
well, I think the mismanagement is what caused the bank run. Like bank
runs.
I
guess so. Well, it's a combination of things. Like, we're in this rising interest rate environment. I highly doubt this will be the only episode where, we've seen havoc in the crypto world, if you want to call that banking, but pump the brakes on that. But you know what I mean. There's a lot of pressure that comes from interest rates rising, as they have been significantly. I mean, as you like to quote Warren Buffett all the time, interest rates are like gravity. Or is that a Munger quote? I don't remember. It's one of them. It's Buffett. Yeah, it is Buffett. Interest rates are like gravity. I guess I should say they're kind of like the inverse. As interest rates go up, it puts more pressure on the downside towards pretty much everything else, which is what the Fed's trying to do. They're trying to cool the economy and somehow stop inflation by causing a recession. Isn't that a nice solution? or whatever they're trying to do or claim they're trying to do. This is part of the result, or a potential result, in that, okay, great. Now the interest rates are way higher. Your bond values are collapsed, and now you're in trouble. And now you got to sell those bonds at a loss, tell all your people that you're selling these bonds at a loss, and then they get panicky. Then everyone runs for the door, and that's a bank run. One type of bank run.
Yeah.
Our friend Ba in the chat says, looking back, it always looks stupid for some of the steps taken, be it SVB or Lehman. I mean, and it's just the result of using any leverage. There's always a risk of something happening. And then you call the leverage stupid, which is like, all right, fair enough. It's just it's an inherent risk with leverage, is that your debt balance stays the same, even if your asset values fall. And that's what happened. They still had all these deposits they have to honor, yet their asset values that they poured into these long-term bonds and other things fell. So it's just, that's the risk. Still have to pay those people back.
Yes.
Is that the key takeaway here? Just debt's bad, MK, or what?
Well, banks are very new to me, really, but almost anyone who I've heard talk about banks that has a good track record investing in them is, basically says the hard part is trying to understand what the assets are, and more or less, as long as people don't do dumb stuff on the asset side, it can be a good business. So that's the reason why personally I've steered away from the really large, complicated banks, because it's just
derivative portfolios alone are like you can't even begin.
Well, it just feels much more like a black box. Whereas if you've got a little bank that's doing one or two things or something, and they have a good track record,
that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I feel like we've talked about at least one of those here.
Yeah.
How are our friends at Hingham doing? I haven't looked at all. I'm assuming pretty much every bank's not doing well today. I don't think any stock in general is doing well today. But
it's down. I think it's down below 1.5 times book now, which is getting down there for them historically. But
sure.
They've also got some headwinds as well with rising rates. There's a pretty good time lag for them to pass those higher rates through to the loans. So
have they issued any statement on it yet? Probably not. It's been pretty fast.
Not that I've seen. I feel like that's the worst possible strategy, isn't it? To just put out a random message saying "Stay calm, everyone." I think that's how you cause a bank run on your bank, I would say.
I saw. I think I saw it first from Joseph Carlson. He did a quick video on it, and I guess the CEO or someone from SVB was like, everything is fine except for one thing. Who says everything is, we're going to be fine in every case except one case. Like that's just a weird thing to say in like a press release.
That's like
an interview.
That sort of reminds me of my high school biology teacher used to always say there's far more ways to be dead than alive. Like you can only have one. You only need one thing really wrong, and it's not going to go well for you. So
right, yeah. If the 1% chance means 100% failure,
yeah, exactly.
Got to multiply that probability out. That kind of reminds me of, like, we've talked about it before with just taking risk in general, and it's like, if we were like calculators, you would always take, if there's a 50% chance of doubling your money, you multiply like the potential return by the probability. If you somehow knew the actual probability, that's basic probability math, and you try to weigh your decisions that way. But then there's the added wrinkle of you only have so much time here, and that's guaranteed. So much time on Earth, I should say. And do you really want to spend, 5 to 10 years of your financial life on something for whatever payoff it might be? So like it's an added wrinkle there, because that's guaranteed. You're running out of time. That is 100% of the time going to happen. And it's not really factored that into a lot of those probability models. It's a very kind of a subjective thing in a way.
Yeah, and that's sort of like the Kelly criterion, isn't it? Where if you have known odds, then you can calculate super precisely how much you should bet. But the odds really aren't known in financial markets.
That's the tricky part. Everyone pretends like they're known, and then you get a bank run. Then you get the Fed deciding to pivot in either direction. And you're like, oh, okay. Well, that was a 1% chance, but now it's 100% chance because it's happening.
Yeah, and there's often far more than 2 or 3 potential outcomes. So that makes the probability maths even more complicated.
Right.
I like the general framework, of something like Kelly. If the downside's lower and the upside's higher, you should probably allocate more cash to that versus, other opportunities where that's not the case. Yeah. But probably the probabilities aren't known. So
it's a logical formula. So we want to use logic as much as we can, but we're emotional creatures. So stuff happens. You get scared when or you do something weird, like put like all your money into long-term bonds at 1%. And then, that's a weird emotional decision. I don't know what that's about. Trying to squeeze an extra percent out, or maybe it wasn't even an emotional decision. Maybe it's just an error, a misclick of $88 billion.
Click the wrong button. Put an extra zero on it by mistake.
It's a fat finger mistake of our whole portfolio of bonds.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
yeah.
John from Art of Value there. I heard SVB had an average deposit of about $5 million.
Ouch. I wonder how much of that
Yeah.
is pulled up by like whoever the big whales are.
Yeah.
But I think Art of Value or someone else at least was saying, yeah. Oh, here, actually, our man Luis just said in the chat, I think only 2.7% of deposits were less than 250 grand. So
Wow.
that would imply that at least some portion of 97% of the customers aren't FDIC insured, or at least some portion of their funds aren't, which would seem to make some sense. So yeah, unless the FDIC is going to pony up a lot more than that for some reason, you would think people are going to take some haircuts here at some level, but maybe not. All eyes are on the government, I guess, which is how it's been for a long time.
Yeah.
Hey, we're getting some love from Caleb here in the chat. Says, this is my favorite duo on the podcast. Don't tell the others. We appreciate it, Caleb.
Thank you, Caleb.
One from Hodo Prime here. I like how the CEOs of dying companies always tell people not to panic. I mean, what are they supposed to do? Tell you to panic and tank their share values? Like, you can't do that. So show me the incentive, show you the outcome. Says our old friend Charlie Munger. You just got to remember what the incentives are, and the incentives is always to pretend like things are all right, because that would mean that would keep the share value a lot higher. It doesn't mean they're always lying, but you know how it goes.
They are incredibly consistent on saying that type of thing, though.
Yeah. So like I said, this is like a weird counterexample where he's like, "It's all good except for this one thing." Like, wait, you're not supposed to say that.
Catastrophic.
That like broke the formula.
Yeah, it's going great, except this one investment now means we have no equity. So aside from that, we're doing fine.
You're supposed to say how like we're going to get out of this. We just got to raise some money real quick. It'll all be fine. That's what you're supposed to say. Not wait this one thing. Any other takeaways from this? Anything you're changing or not changing? Well, I guess I should say anything you're changing, which implies that everything else would not be changing. Or maybe something you're looking into potentially.
Yeah, there's a couple interesting kind of technical things that I've picked up just from following through this. Like, I didn't realize the whole certain securities stated at cost rather than at market value and that type of thing in some cases.
That's something to look out for.
Rather important technical thing if people have if banks have big securities portfolios. I know that's definitely not the case with things like Berkshire, where their stock portfolio now flows through the income statement. So I'll have to dig into the rules on exactly when you do and don't have to mark to market and all that. That's kind of an interesting, like, little accounting thing to pick up. But I think it's just another good example of you have to understand the assets and they have to not explode, basically. So,
and like you were kind of saying earlier, that's why banks are so hard. Insurance companies, anyone who has like huge deposits, you gotta follow the money, and sometimes it goes to weird places, or like you can't really understand what it is easily. So it's tough, and that's why like Buffett always warns against like how banking and insurance are very hard to analyze if you don't know what you're doing. Which this might be a textbook example of why, because you just look at the balance sheet, you're like, oh look, they're good. They have all these assets worth this much. They're liquid. They're fine. They'll be all right. But then you realize, oh wait, this is just like their stated value, not the actual value of these bonds.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like you're saying, it doesn't look so odd anymore. And now we're in this situation.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe we just got to be on Twitter more. And then we learned these things early from Raging Capital and others.
Yeah. The guy's blowing up on Twitter. That's pretty legendary, really, isn't it?
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Absolutely.
That's also what's wild. It's like that was out there. It's public, fairly giant bank, and maybe not giant in like worldwide terms, but very large by common person standards. And it just kind of got swept away until it was too late. Maybe it was inevitable.
And it's right in front of you if you just read the balance sheet footnotes.
Exactly. It's all out there. It's efficient markets.
Yeah, sure.
Everything's factored in. It's fine. Prices are accurate. It's all good. Price definitely reflects actual value at all times.
Yes, it's mostly right most of the time, but sometimes
incredibly wrong. Sometimes bank run wrong.
Yes.
All right. Anything else on SVB bank runs in general? Are we scared of future bank runs? What do the people think?
Yeah, it will be interesting to see whether it flows to other banks.
That would be not fun, but
yeah.
Luis with the super chat saying that this is all he has left from his SVB investment. We wish you the best of luck, Luis, and we appreciate you for sacrificing for the cause.
Yeah.
What are you looking at now, Tom? Anything new? And I missed last week's episode, so I don't know what you guys discussed then. What did you discuss then?
What did we discuss last week? Was it 13Fs last week? I can't remember. I think it was 13Fs last week, wasn't it?
No, that was a couple of weeks ago. I was there. Unless you continued with 13Fs. All right, we don't know what we talked about last week. Well, are you looking at anything honestly, right now, Tom?
I feel under that much pressure when I'm hosting. I think that I just forget what's going on.
I can understand that.
I'm going to need to look this up, actually.
We are planning on doing some sort of our best ideas episode in the next, maybe next week, if not the week after that. But that'll be coming up soon. Unfortunately, it won't be on April Fool's Day like it was last year. That was tremendous. Our April Fool's Day best ideas stream. If anyone's newer to the channel and missed last year's April Fool's stream, I'm kind of ruining the surprise now, but you might enjoy that one just for some quick laughs. Caleb says, give Tom a break. He just had a kid. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. I just looked it up. We talked about the Buffett letter and Alibaba earnings.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It's a Buffett letter.
Yeah. But no, I'm not looking at anything new in particular that I can think of. But yeah, existing stuff has come down in price a bit. So
have you been spending? Surely you've been spending less time on stocks since having a baby, or have you been spending more because you're?
No, definitely less. Although I did have 2 weeks away from work, so that definitely helped. But back to the day job this week.
Has your routine? How much has your routine changed? Surely a ton.
Hasn't been too bad, other than my hours that I work in my day job could be anywhere during the day. And they're not as strict office time. Could be early in the morning, late night, somewhere in between.
Blessing and a curse.
So there you go. I've definitely had much more early starts. Put it that way.
Fair.
Yeah.
It's got to be an exciting time, even if exhausting.
Yeah, for sure.
Is he how's his investment vocab?
Still working on it. I tried to read him the Buffett letter, but I don't think there was much retention from that. So
yeah, still babbling. He'll get there.
Exactly. I'm still working on it. I mean,
first words will be compound interest, of course.
Yes.
Show him the rule of 72 video from way back when. Jonathan Morris of the super chat. Weekly reminder to buy the index and compound for 99% of us. I just tweeted the other day saying that the average person thinks he or she is above average. And I would actually extend that to say that basically everyone thinks they're above average, which is impossible. Just keep that in mind. We could all be fools. Assume you're below average. Someone responded to that saying the above average person thinks they're below average. Maybe so. Or at least acknowledges that they could be below average, right?
Yeah, so that's 80% of people think they're on the top 20% and all that. Right?
Yes, similar. Same deal. Yeah. But thank you, Jonathan. We appreciate it. And you're technically not contrarian, but contrarian for here views.
Jonathan will do well.
Yes. As long as you pay attention to your financial house and you make contributions consistently and you don't put $88 billion towards 1.63% 10-year
When 10
bond,
times leveraged.
and you'll probably be fine. Just don't get reckless, and you'll probably be okay. You're going to be better off than if you spent it all on Starbucks, of course. Can't be spending $88 billion on Starbucks lattes anyway, so got to put the money somewhere.
You could buy Starbucks.
Yeah,
the company.
I guess you could. I mean, what's their bond portfolio look like? We're going to have to look at everyone's bond portfolio now. What are those short-term cash alternatives? So what are those really?
Yeah.
I got to take a close look now.
I suspect Starbucks doesn't have quite the leverage, but you never know.
They got a lot of stores. I don't know. Got to probably throw off quite a bit of cash. Got to put it somewhere.
It is a weird business banking to have, the best bank you can probably find doing a 2% return on assets or something. They're just levered to the hills to get a good return on equity.
Well, it's a very unfree industry in that it's highly regulated. It's incredibly consolidated now, especially since Dodd-Frank. You've seen. I was actually looking the other day, so I was talking to a buddy about it. My friends, we talk about banks consolidation, of course. That's this group here, and you find them all on Twitter too. But I think it was something like there were 9,000 banks back in 1995, and now we're down to say 4. Here we go. Okay, never mind. Back in 1990, there were about 15,000 FDIC insured banks in the U.S., and we're all the way down to 5,400, or even less now. I think it's below 5,000 as of 2020. So incredible consolidation in a very relatively short period of time. Banking is such an old industry, so it was never like this before, where you had this incredible consolidation. So you're left with a bunch of gigantic players, and then obviously the Fed has become more powerful than ever, just in the amount of stuff it owns. So it's just a very odd industry in general because of that factor alone, and all the things that tons of regulations get to. Could you imagine trying to start a bank right now? You'd have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars just on attorneys, which would help me out to just to get started and to make sure you're following regulations, spending tens of thousands a month meeting filings, assuming you want to offer anything that people actually get, residential mortgages or credit cards or all these highly regulated lending industries, at least in the US. I'm sure it's pretty much the same in the developed world. Just a massive amounts of red tape, for better and for worse. And maybe that's just the consequence. You just get consolidation because it's so costly to actually run a bank in the first place. Yeah, you still end up with mistakes. So isn't that fun? Now the mistakes are just way bigger.
Yeah, I think there also, I don't know the exact history on this off the top of my head, but I think there also used to be a lot more regulation back in the day around banks not being able to operate in that many states other than their home state.
Way back when, there were quite, right. You couldn't have multi-state banks. That was more in the era before the Fed.
Okay.
Yeah, but that is correct. And I forget the term was. There was a specific term for that, but interstate banks were not allowed. Banking way back then, it's so much different than now because just the whole environment is so different. Because you got reserve requirements are so different now. They're even when it came to the Fed, it used to. When that was first started, it needed to have gold reserves before it could do anything. So the currency was effectively backed by gold. And before that, of course, it was directly backed by gold, technically speaking. But then that was slowly broken over the 20th century. So it's a very different industry now, mainly because of just what's happened with monetary policy and then all the regulations and everything, especially after the Depression and Second World War and all that. But without getting into the history of banking, I guess. We got another super chat this time from Eunice. Always appreciate him stopping by, our Turkish expert on
super
Turkish
sticker.
stocks.
Even I had to go on YouTube I had to go on the stream to just see what that was, but it says you're number one. So thank you, Eunice. That's
Oh,
what the
cool.
sticker says.
Yeah, StreamYard doesn't show the sticker. That's even better.
No.
How kind.
Yeah. We literally only see what you saw on the screen just then, Eunice,
Yeah,
where it says super sticker.
sticker.
Yeah, that's all we got.
Thank you, Eunice.
Thank you.
You know, I said at the top of the show, Jason would be stopping by. I don't know what's going on. Maybe he texted me. No, I don't know. Oh, man, Jason, I shouldn't have said you were coming. You got me looking silly.
Maybe he hasn't had dinner yet.
Yeah, can't invest
therefore,
until he's had dinner on this Friday evening in the US.
Yeah, could be a late one. We'll see.
What else? That's all. I don't want to talk about banking anymore unless you do, Tom.
No, that's about all I got. We could definitely take some questions though.
Yeah. Here, there's actually one here for you from Caleb. Tom, I heard you say you own ETFs. Why don't you just buy more Berkshire if it's a reasonable price to book?
Yes. No, that's more or less what I've changed to be honest. Yeah. Yeah.
Are your ETFs mostly in like designated retirement accounts and that sort of thing? Or
yeah, good point. Yeah, all of my retirement accounts are just in index funds because that's I think I know of a way to get that in Berkshire if I really wanted to, but there'd be some admin there. And I don't know what the fees would be like, but more where the options are pretty slim for retirement accounts. So that's just indexed. Outside of that, I have like ETF holdings I bought in 2017 and have never added to. So they're fairly small, really. So
sure.
It's mostly individual stocks at this point.
Fair enough. I got asked if I'm going public with my cleaning business. It's not exactly the plan, and we're well away from that point. That would not make much sense unless I did that. What was that holding? I forget.
The deli?
Yes, the
Hometown International.
Yes. Wow, you remember that one? I made a whole video on it, but
that was great. Well, it was terrible, but it was a nice story.
Yes, exactly. It was it was like a holding company with a bunch of weird like ownership structure with all these sub entities, but the main entity, all it showed on its balance sheet was this deli that produced like a couple tens of thousands in revenue, but its market cap was like $100 million. So if I was going to be going public, it would have to be some sort of scheme like that.
But the guys running it got done for stock manipulation and things, didn't they?
Oh, I never followed up on it. Is that what happened?
I'm fairly sure, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Because there was like so little volume, like two of them or something were just pumping the price up. I'm pretty sure.
No way. Oh, that's so good. Let me see. What was it called? Hometown International?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's not public anymore.
It was over the counter before. Hometown International stock. What fraud? Let's see.
I guess, yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Prosecutors, this is according to Wall Street Journal, prosecutors said that illicit trading inflated Hometown International stock by almost 940%, from about $1.25 to nearly 13. So yeah, it looks like they got, at least they got charged with it. I don't know if they actually got officially. It looks like I'm only seeing that they were charged, not actually convicted. But that's funny. I remember someone in my comments was like very hostile and was saying like, oh, like because they have all these, warrants and whatnot, it must be fine. I'm like, well, I mean, they're still not showing it on their balance sheet. So, and if it's a warrant to a shell company that owns nothing in it, what do you really own? So anyways, it's just amazing.
Maybe that was the CEO under an alias. Just
that would be something. That was this guy who got charged. Yeah. But no, I'm not planning on going public. That's not really. I mean, really, the goal is just to improve the business, do what you can to keep service as good as possible, and just continue to build the team out. And if it ever makes sense, eventually, let's say it gets to a massive level, making tens of millions of dollars, but I mean, that'd have to be that'd be a national brand at that point. But it'll be then I'd cross the bridge when I got there if it makes sense for some reason to go public because I wanted the money to supercharge growth. And sure, that would be the decision. But I mean, I'm so far away from that point. I haven't given it any thought anyways. But that's kind of the equation for any business that I would understand. Just you try to grow it. And if it eventually makes sense to raise money because you need money for growth and you don't want to take out debt, it's a way to do it. Assuming you're not doing nefarious things, you're just trying to pump the stock price, get a cash grab and let it go. But if you're actually trying to grow the business, that's why you would do it. So just focusing on building up that cash flow. And I'm definitely learning a lot with just management in general and sales, trying to build out a sales team right now. If anyone happens to be in the Houston area or knows someone in the Houston area, I am trying to hire some sales folks, especially for the summer, even like a summer sales position. So any college students in the audience or who know any college students, that could be a nice little summer job if you're looking for something to do. But yeah, without getting too pitchy, that is what I'm trying to work on right now is building out a sales team. Because right now the sales team is my manager and I. So we've been doing the selling. Did a little door-to-door the other weekend. And I did close. It's been
we nervous going into that, Jack? Or
no, I've done it before, not sales. I have done way back in high school. I volunteered for like some political campaigns, and you had to go door to door for that. So I'm relatively desensitized, but there's definitely some anxiety going in. But I have confidence in our product since we do a good job, and once you kind of get going, it gets easy. And I do find that people are a little bit nicer in Houston than in Chicagoland. When it comes to door-to-door salesmen, they're just a little bit less mean, we'll call it. But it's as long as you avoid houses that say no solicitors or anything like that, you should be fine. People, if they don't want it, they'll just tell you you're not interested. And of course, you have a few people cut you off right away. It's a little annoying, but you're interrupting their day after all, so it makes sense. But anywho, did that. It's been beautiful weather here in Houston, so it's quite good.
Very nice. I was just trying to look up if you did go public. I was trying to see if there's a name for a category smaller than a micro cap. I know there was a nano cap, which apparently is smaller than $50 million in market cap, but I'm sure there's one below that I can't recall. Unless that's like a pico cap or something, but I might be making that up.
I don't know what's after
nano.
nano.
Anyone knows, let us know. Is there something smaller than nano?
You just asked, am I only doing door-to-door sales? No. The vast majority of our leads come in through paid ads. I was kind of experimenting in a new area with door-to-door sales, trying to figure out what our kind of conversion numbers are. And it's about a 2% close rate. I haven't done too many doors yet, but did about 100 in 2 days and closed on a couple. So, that's, and it was I wasn't doing like the full day. It was like at the end, it ended up being a few hours. Just trying to get kind of work on the pitch a bit, get a script going, and that'll be kind of a good starting point for when I bring on some more salespeople. And it's always something I could do as well. Trying to encourage our technicians to do some sales as well. If we have a slow day and they want to make some extra money, that's one way to do it. And not forcing them by any means because they weren't hired as sales folks, but if they want to, it's just an opportunity. And just trying to build out demand. Since that's our current bottleneck right now, it's getting more people in the door because we got the capacity, which is good.
Good stuff.
So, Joe with a super chat. What's the plan for Berkshire? Y'all going? I will be going. Without saying too much, for our meetup of some sort, we're planning on doing something that Friday evening, most likely. So save the date, I guess. I'll be sending some more info. Definitely in the Discord, so join that if you haven't already. Otherwise, once we have our date and place kind of locked in for our event, our punch card meetup, I'll obviously announce it here on the show. But the tentative plan is Friday evening, the Friday before the Saturday meeting. Tom, I know you're not going this year. You were there last year.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You have obligations, special obligations now.
Yeah, next year I'm fairly confident I'll be there, but not this
That'll be
year.
good. I wonder if we'll meet in person before then. When
I
will
don't
our
know.
paths cross, Tom? I doubt you're doing
You're
much
welcome to
international travel
come
this
visit
year.
me in New Zealand.
Yeah, I'd probably have to get down there.
Mhm.
I have another trip planned later this year that is not to New Zealand, so I don't know how many more trips I'd be taking.
Maybe if we did an Australia meetup, we could get a few of us.
I mean, that's not much better than New Zealand for me, but
No, but we'd get Frank, I think, if we did Australia.
yes, that would be good to get a trio. It'd be more efficient for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And I know Brad is. I think he's more likely than not. I don't want to speak for him, but I think I have been trying to encourage him on the air, pressure him. We need to pressure Brad to go as well. He is at least on the fence, but that is that is the plan. I will definitely be there. I booked my flight there, not my flight back yet. So right now it's one way to Omaha. Those ticket prices are only going up, so book your flight.
Working on getting a job at Berkshire or something.
Yeah, one way. And Matt just gave us a super chat. I swear, did he not already give us one? No, sorry, Matt did not. Matt gives us consistent super chats. I was mixing them all up, but he gives for the Punch Card Conference Fund. So right now it's I will be there. Brad is tentative. And I don't think Karnen's coming because he needs to get his visa to come, and that's like a process. But I think he was planning on coming next year as well. So I think next year might be the big one where we can get the majority of our members at least to go. It's a big trip for all of us just because it's in the middle of nowhere. No offense to people in Omaha, but it's really in there.
Fingers crossed we've still got Warren and Charlie up there as well.
I know, right?
We'll
I was a little worried last year when I was missing it. I mean, we're still a couple months away, so I shouldn't count my chickens before they hatch. But
yeah, well, that's sort of why I went last year because I was thinking it might.
Yeah, you better get it while you can.
Yeah.
I'm just getting flooded with super chats today. They love us, Tom.
Well, it's another sticker. I'm going to have to see what that is.
Yeah, Luis gave us a sticker. What does it say, Tom?
Hang on. Where is it?
While you look for that,
it's like a excited face with $ eyes.
Hey, that's great. We like that. That's very on brand. Thanks, Luis.
Very nice.
Appreciate it. Got this question from Bradley from me. He says, what are some lessons learned from operating? Let's see. I did have to have a hard conversation this week, which I could have passed on to my manager, but I decided to do it myself to build character. and it's just I'm trying to put myself in uncomfortable situations as much as I can because that's how I'm going to learn the most. And then you'll be able to identify when you're actually hiring people, like it'll be easier to identify what to look for. So I guess, but if you're looking for general lessons, more like reiterating lessons that I might have already kind of known that are probably obvious to a lot of people, but timeliness is super important. Not hesitating to help out a customer if they're unsatisfied for some reason. At the end of the day, reputation is the thing that really carries on. So if it means you have to lose a couple $100 to make a customer happy because they're unhappy with some service or whatever happens, you got to do it. So that's kind of the big lesson that's been really reiterated. And one thing that I'm just continuously working on is just trying to get better at building teams and always trying to put talented people in a good spot. Because that's ultimately how any organization grows. So I'm just really trying to focus on that skill. That's kind of first and foremost. As much as I'd love to just, I could go sell all day myself, but eventually you're going to reach a plateau doing that. So the way to really leverage your way to growth is to hire people to do those things and try to put them in a position to succeed. So that's really what I'm working on. And we'll continuously be working on for however long this goes. So, and as Buffett likes to say, he's I forget the exact quote, but it's like being a good businessman makes you a better investor. Being a good investor makes you a better businessman. It's a two-way street. So that should be a big advantage long term, I would think, as long as I go into this with open eyes and ears. I saw we had a few super chats roll in while I was blabbing.
Yeah. So our next sticker from Luis is a moustache. Not sure what that's about.
Like a modus operandi mustache?
Maybe. Potentially. Actually, we forgot to mention, but Silicon Valley Bank is a former back in the day Pabri investment around.
Yeah, I did see that on Twitter, or someone posted that.
He did pretty well. There was something about the bank had options in a bunch of the .com startups that weren't reflected in the financials, and he managed to sort of ride the bubble wave for a little bit and did pretty well in it. But anyhow, and then Karsten, we've got no comment, but it's got a little one sort of logo animation-y thing on it, because apparently it's his very first super chat on YouTube. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Karsten. I haven't seen that name around. We'll have to see you here more often. We appreciate it. Great. All right, where were we?
Questions, I think.
Yes, Tom. Caleb suggested take all the cash the business makes and buy more businesses at 2 times free cash flow and become a serial acquirer. You say this. I haven't taken a dime out of the business yet, because the goal really would be to roll it into something. And I actually am looking at a potential competitor to acquire. Very preliminary right now, but it's something I'm working on. And that could be a really exciting thing too. But of course, I don't want to outrun the treadmill, we'll say, because that could be pretty painful. So I want to be careful, but at worst, I can learn something from the competition in the meantime. So it's a good exercise, regardless. Just looking at potential acquisitions, looking at what the market's offering and all that. It definitely helps in the private setting as well. I don't know. I can't call myself an acquirer until I buy at least another one, right?
What if you get blocked by the FTC, antitrust, buying up all these competitors?
I'm an attorney. They're one of their own. They'll be like, yeah, I used to.
Fair enough.
But Tom, have you given any thought? And I know right when I bought the business, like you guys all started looking at.
Everyone got hyped up.
You're like, whoa! Like, what's available in my area? Like, have you looked at that at all?
Yeah, I take a quick look probably every 6 or 8 weeks or something. I haven't looked recently.
Okay.
Just to see what's around.
Is it something that's
really nothing interesting?
Is it something on your priority list? Ever buy like a small business you take 100% of?
I'd do it, yeah.
Yeah, that didn't really answer the question. Is it a priority?
Well,
is it a goal, or is it just more like if it comes up, I'll do it?
No, it's more like I'm just trying to figure out where to intelligently put cash, and if that makes the most sense, I'd do it. Yeah.
So just opportunistic, not really.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like,
that's fair.
I assume a couple of years ago your plan was just to keep buying real estate.
Indeed, it was.
Run the Burr method or something, and then you obviously had to slight change of tack because an opportunity came up. So that's kind of how I view it as well.
It was more a change in the order of priorities. I still want to get I still want my real estate portfolio to be much larger than it is now, and it'll be a big part of things in the future. But just focusing on that cash flow first, I think makes a lot more sense. Especially seeing just kind of how some of these bigger investors now did things. Not that I'm saying I'll ever reach that level, but if you take away some of the fundamentals from it and use it to your advantage, it's kind of where I'm getting at. Though it's by no means necessary, of course. You can be very successful without buying a private business outright.
Yes.
It just seemed like a fun challenge and a potentially lucrative one.
Yeah. But if you keep rolling them up at 2 times cash flow, that compounds pretty fast.
Yeah, well, as long as you keep the cash flow up, that's the hard part. Yes. Anyone can buy a business and run it into the ground. So you still have to have some ability, or certainly a lot of potentially you have to put a lot of just time and energy in. So anyways,
Certainly. I just want to say our latest super chat sticker. It's like it's like a foam finger sort of sticker. You know what I mean?
Well, I have no idea what these actually look like. Well, thank you, Aaron.
Like what people have at sports games and stuff.
Oh, like a foam finger. Right.
Yeah.
So like we're number one.
I suppose, yeah.
Oh, appreciate it, Aaron. That's Malaysian.
Yeah, there we go.
Got a question here from Bradley. How are you guys protecting yourselves and your balance sheets from all the potential headwinds and recession risks? Work harder, diversify income streams? Question mark. I'll yield that to you, Tom.
Yeah, this has changed a lot since buying a house. Because it used to be when we were renting that we really had no debt at all. Can you hear that noise outside?
Yeah, a little bit.
Shut my window.
So
someone's
rude.
chainsawing or something.
Yeah, does someone know what time it is? Does someone know that we're currently filming Punch Card Investing?
Yeah,
We're live
later. Yeah.
What was I saying? Bought a house.
Yeah. So when we were renting, it was just we had no debt at all, basically, besides a little bit of student loan debt, which are completely interest free in New Zealand. So there's no incentive to pay it off at all. So I'm just paying the bare minimums on that. So we're in a position where we just stacked up cash until we found interesting stocks to buy, sort of thing. That's changed a little bit now. I have some floating interest rate debt, which have almost cleared entirely. But in the past few months, that's been a home for what would otherwise be idle cash back when we were renting. So
what's that debt for?
On the house.
So part of it is variable?
Yeah, part of it is. The bulk of it is fixed for 5 years.
I knew that much. I didn't realize you still had some that was variable.
We had a little bit.
We probably discussed it at some point.
Yeah, we had some cash that was left over, over and above what we needed for a deposit. So we more or less borrowed that amount plus a tiny bit more. So we more or less paid off straight out the gate, but we can draw down on that money if we want to for whatever reason. So
sure.
Yeah, that's sort of how it's structured now. So we have very little cash around these days. That's how I've kind of structured it. But there's money available, and we've got a stock portfolio and all that sort of stuff if things get crazy. But that's where we're at.
Fair enough.
How about you? You're allergic to cash, aren't you?
No, I'm not allergic. It's a complicated relationship. Right. Well, I'm making myself uncomfortable with the amount of cash I'm putting towards that, because I'd really love to use it for other things, but I'm just trying to focus on debt pay down right now. And it's unfortunate that I won't be as liquid as I could be if things were to get really bad. But at the same time, if I can insulate myself by lowering the amount of payments I have to make, that's also very useful. So you don't need as much liquidity in a rough event. But one thing that I do feel a little bit better about now is that if I'd say the worst case scenario, or something that'd be really bad to happen, would be me losing my job as an attorney, because that's the bulk of our income right now, even after the business purchase. But the nice thing is I do have this business I can now push on like a lever. If I put a bunch of hours into it, I will make money from it. Whether I make as much as I was as an attorney, that's not really the point. But I could make more money if I were to lose my attorney salary. I could put all my effort into this business, or at least a lot more, and that could be a way to increase my income after losing a bunch. So I won't starve. And even then, the best insurance plan is dual income with no kids. So my wife's salary will definitely take care of. That's enough to cover all of our expenses, and even I think all of our debt payments, like all of them, even if our tenants stop paying rent too. So from that perspective, we're not as leveraged. I mean, we wouldn't be saving anything at that point, but I think we could cover just about everything, which is a solid position to be in, even if it would be uncomfortable. But then again, there's a chance she loses her job too. So if we somehow lose both of our jobs, which are in very different industries, that would be unfortunate, and we just have to go all in on the business. Meanwhile, we're just clearing as much debt as we can in the meantime, and that should put us in a stronger position to where we don't need as much. long term.
Jack, remind me on your net worth series on your YouTube channel what the goal is. Is it $1 million by 30? Is that the?
Yeah, this is an arbitrary goal. Yes, $1 million by 30.
You're pretty much there on the asset front, right? You just got to clear the debt at this point.
Well, sure, yeah. I'm at like 1.1 or 1.2 in assets.
Yeah,
but I'm at like 1.1 in liabilities as well. So my net worth isn't very good from that perspective. But it doesn't include some assets that doesn't include my wife's retirement accounts. But it includes pretty much everything else. And I would argue it's a bit conservative in some of the real estate valuation, and it doesn't include real estate reserves as well. So really, my actual net worth is a bit higher, but yeah. Caleb,
I guess
Caleb asks how old am I? I'm 25. I turned 26 in 3 weeks, so
nice.
Almost there.
Oh, that's right. You're a fool, aren't you, Jake?
Yes. April Fool's
yeah, I forgot about that. All I was saying is, I mean, you don't have to get carried away doing deal after deal, right? You just pay the debt. You're going to make you go.
The thing is, the $1 million thing was just like to have
arbitrary
some goal, but that's not really the goal long term. That's just kind of like one step in the tree, and the idea would be like, okay, once I do that, I'll be in a fine financial position. I won't have to worry as much as if I did. Well, assuming I should say $1 million in 2018 terms. So whatever that is,
you could get a Big Mac by the time you're 30.
Yeah. I don't know if $1 million is going to be chump change in like 3 years time, but we'll see. And Luis says I can also collect super stickers. So yes, that is correct as well.
Yes.
But yeah, that's the goal. Really above all, it's just having diversified income, a decent nest egg, and then just having the ability to not spend a bunch of money, but having the ability to work on my business portfolio and keep building that up and having that take up an increasingly large share of things. That would be a good position to be in. So that's what I'm working on. But right now I got to dig myself out of this hole. I think I put things in backwards order, spent a little bit too much time in real estate, did this big house rehab. In hindsight, I would not have done it like that again, but it set me behind however many months. So that's kind of what I'm working on. We're nearing the end of the show, but I did mention that a very special person will be joining us, and that is the After Dinner Investor.
Hey.
There he is.
He's here.
Good to see you guys. Sorry I'm late. I had to run to the bank. Long line tonight, but everything's okay.
I thought you were serious for a second. Like, wait, it's 9 p.m. Like,
did the ATM work or not?
Well, there's no problem, Tom. We'll
okay.
Yeah, but Monday can't come soon enough. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Doing well. Did I miss the best ideas, or can we still get some ideas out of you guys? That's what I showed up for.
We actually talked about banking. I think we're going to do best ideas next week. But I think you just saw that question we had up there. Maybe that would be kind of a good one to answer. We're just kind of answering audience questions right now. But Bradley here asked, how are you guys protecting yourselves and your balance sheets from all the potential headwinds and recession risks? Work harder, diversify income streams. Like, what's going on in the Rothman household?
I'm buying Arconic,
and that's it. All in.
Problem solved.
No, I mean, I've got a great. It could be a best idea. It could, be a run on the bank next week. You never know when you're talking about stocks. But I think you got to do all those things, right, Jack? You got to make money. You got to invest money. You got to make more money.
Clear the debt at some point.
Yeah.
And don't put all your cash in. We were just saying with Silicon Valley Bank, don't put it all in 1.63% 10-year mortgages. And
can you guys imagine going bankrupt on treasuries? It's like a crazy thing. I was telling Tom that earlier today.
Yeah,
but they did.
Well,
and Tom told me why. Leverage.
Yeah, it's because you have all these depositors that can withdraw at any time. So
yeah. I mean, they were leveraged 13-1 or something before everything went bad. So the value of the bonds doesn't have to move much for that to blow up.
if people want their money out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they incinerated the equity before people wanted their money out, but
it's one of those
that's
situations.
that's why people wanted their money out, and then it went back.
Yeah, right. It was. It's one of those situations where we like to say that volatility isn't risk, but this is one of those situations where volatility becomes risk because you're leveraged. Leverage is really where the risk comes from, but the volatility is like the catalyst in this situation. So, if you're gonna have a bunch of deposits out where people can withdraw at any time, better be careful with what you do with your liquid reserves.
I'm going to predict that by Monday, this is 100% solved. And every single depositor, like all these Silicon Valley startups that have to make payroll next week, that were above the $250,000 insured. Maybe I'm saying things you guys already said, but they have to solve that problem.
You would think so, just because of the size.
Yeah.
We were kind of suggesting that it might be solved in a matter of days, even if not Monday. Because that would, given how the government's behaved before, there's usually a lot of backstops. And even if it wasn't the government, you'd imagine some private player would come in quickly too. Though right now it seems to be in the government's court.
The crazy thing is, there's all these small banks and their owners across the country, and someone out there has their pants down. Like someone is doing the same thing these guys were doing, messed up, and they're just probably like, I hope it doesn't get to us.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
We're saying don't panic. That's the key.
Yeah, don't panic. Yeah.
We were going to close shortly, Jason.
Oh no! Don't let me interrupt you.
But what's new with you? How do you?
You came in hot with a stock.
We'll let you decide on how you want to close this out. Is there any little quick topic? Got a question maybe?
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot of things I could discuss.
I get there's a lot, but
I've been talking with some extremely high level people, and some people can vouch for that. I've been talking to people all over the world. I've been talking with people in very interesting rooms. But we'll save that for a later date. If you guys want to talk about my, close with maybe my best idea, and then if you guys want to talk about it next week further after looking at it, happy to do that.
That can be our teaser for next week's best idea show.
Yeah,
you can kind of get us warmed up for that.
So I just want to say quickly, Jason's not exaggerating when he's talking about his connections. Yeah, I just put that out there.
Yeah. But
people have no idea what we're talking about.
I talk to a high level. It depends who the high level people are, but they're out there. But yeah, I'm all teed up for my best idea because I've got an interesting idea. I'm not going to call it the best idea. There's people that talk about stocks and then like a week later the bank goes to zero in 2 days, and then there's clips of it. So I don't really feel like saying best idea, but I have an interesting idea. It's a merger workout. It's called Arconic, ARNC. And full disclosure, if what I'm about to say happens relatively soon, I'm going to get way more than like 30 or 40%. I'm going to get like many bags. But if that happens, I'm happy to come back and talk about what I did. If it doesn't happen, we'll never hear about it again. But basically my point is, full disclosure, I have a bet on this business getting acquired. So this is like an aluminum company. They make like rolled aluminum, and they had been spun off from Alcoa a few years ago. And then the spinoff that they were a part of, they spun off from that. So it's a company that's been chopped up a lot. But basically, an article comes out in the Wall Street Journal a week or two ago saying that I think the company, it's Apollo, a private equity company, has some. I'm reading from the article here, has submitted a bid in February and has debt financing in place. They might have got some notes from Jack, but they have debt financing in place, and now Arconic and their advisors are going out talking to other potential advisors. And the way I structured it is not typical merger workout. And like if the deal doesn't happen, I might take a loss. But if one was to buy this stock and own the stock, potentially it could get bought out. And if it doesn't, I'm reading different estimates online, and the company seems to be, a lot of people might think they're in an okay shape, even if they don't get bought out. So it's an interesting situation. But what caught my eye was that the fact that they already have a bid, the people who made the bid have money, and they have the debt financing in place. And it's just kind of a feel thing. It's a company that I don't think anyone would really care if it gets bought, and I don't think there's much that could stop it. But it may not happen.
What are you left with if it doesn't happen?
Well, that depends.
I'm kind of looking here at the income statement here.
Yeah. So the company, they do make money, and their earnings are projected to grow in the coming years. Apparently, as the price of aluminum comes back, within the recent time period, they bought back $300 million of stock, and they just approved $200 million more. So they have cash flow. They've been buying back stock.
Just quickly, what price is the offer at, Jason?
We don't know, and that's the interesting thing. The article says that they quote someone that says, essentially, if the deal was going to happen, it would happen at a significant premium. And I'm testing my merger workout skills with this one because they have net debt of about 1.5 billion. When this article came out, like today, I think the business, I'm going to check now, is like 2.6 billion in market cap.
2.6.
When the deal came, or when this article came out talking about a potential deal, I think the market cap was like 2.2 or something like that. So if you take 2.2 plus 1.5, that's 3.7, I think. And then you divide that by their shares outstanding, that's like $36 and change. So I could be doing that wrong, but my understanding is that like if they had to buy the debt, that would be reflected in the stock price, I think, if they're paying the enterprise value. I'm just testing my skills here. I'm trying something out, but my prediction, if I had to, make a prediction here, I'm going to say $37 a share. That would be kind of the debt plus the equity. But I could be wrong about that. But I also could, someone else could make an offer. It could go higher. But again, the deal may not happen. So it's one of those merger workout things.
So have you bought calls, Jason? Just by the way you worded that a little earlier.
I have. Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, some of them are.
I was confused how 26 to 37 was, quote, many bags, but now I see.
It's going to be a lot of bags, or it's going to be no bags, or it's going to be a few bags or break even. It depends what the stock price does, but I think basically the bet I structured is July calls and December calls, both, and $30 strike price, and the premiums were pretty cheap. I think I can't remember off the top of my head. They were cheap though. So
Jason, are you an options man now?
So I don't think you've met him, but after dinner trader also exists, and you can respect this, Jack. Behind every great fortune that I've seen out there, there's someone else's money. Like all these guys that are billionaires who manage money, they always raised money from someone else, or the private equity people. I'm reading a book about Blackstone, about Steve Schwartzman, and beginning of the book, how does that guy become a multi-billionaire? They went around for 2 years and tried to raise money. So I guess my point is, like, I'm not doing that. And at some point we got to make some real money here, Jack. We need to, we have to.
I mean,
and so I'm willing to take some shots.
But hold on a second. Other people's money, sure. And I hear what you're saying. I would probably tend to agree, but is options?
Oh, you
really
would.
To do it?
I mean, it depends. I've had a lot of success in the last year with options, a lot. But I know the game I'm playing, and it's a lot different than stocks. So to me, it's all a capital capital allocation decision, taking the last few percentage points, whatever it is, and taking some shots. There's also some interesting things I've done with call options in the last year where I think they call it in the money. Like if Alibaba's trading at
Like
70,
Mm,
I would buy calls with an exercise price of like 30 or 40.
sure. Yeah.
And maybe you could say like, well, what are the odds that Alibaba would go down to 30 or 40 within the next couple of years? Seemed low at the time. Still seem, well, I don't want to say because I'm out, but it seemed low and the price has come back. But there's ways with options where you take them out a couple of years if you have the opportunity, the leaps, where maybe one could argue you could lower areas of risk, and also buying deep in the money where the exercise price is a lot lower than where you think the stock might trade. But it's very different. You don't, I'll tell you this, after I go from an options trade, I have the utmost respect of the feeling of owning a share of stock, like understanding like no matter what happens, no matter the bank runs, no matter anything else, as long as I want to own this stock and no one can come take it from me because of like any liabilities, it's a great feeling. So it definitely crystallizes the beauty of share ownership. That's for sure.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're introducing a very different risk, which is time decay, which I think is what you're getting at, and that you don't really own it. Well, I mean, you own it, but you own the contract, but the contract goes away, unlike the share barring bankruptcy.
A lot of people talk about time decay, but I read up on I think a lot of what I read up on was based on Joel Greenblatt, and a lot of when I learned this stuff, it was more like forgetting that time decay stuff and forgetting what the option might trade at, but actually going and thinking about the full exercise with that option. Like, okay, I'm buying this option with the premium.
Yeah.
If the stock trades above the exercise price, I would get $20. The exercise price was 10. I pocket $10 and the premium was $3. I make like 3 times my money. So I found kind of forcing yourself to think that way kind of forces some reality. But the big risk I'm taking, I believe, when I buy call options is if that freaking stock price is not above the exercise price at a certain point in time, and if it dips below that exercise, or if it dips below the exercise price, then I won't have the opportunity to exercise that option, and the option goes to zero, and I lose the premium I paid. So
Right.
that's always the big risk, is that you can't exercise the option, or it trades below the point where you could, and then it's not trading for anything. It's worthless.
So are you looking for bargain options or because if the stock's very volatile, what's called the implied volatility goes up, and that can make the option contract really expensive compared to where it might have been before that happened. So are you looking for kind of low IV stock options, or is it just purely based on kind of like all right, I think this fundamental event, this merger, whatever it might be, might happen, and these options don't seem egregiously priced? Is that kind of the methodology, or do you have a methodology, I should say?
The latter is when I've studied it, that's kind of the way I learned, and then that's how I think about it. Again, just taking shots here. It could be very much wrong about this stuff compared to people who've done this a lot longer, but that's the way I think about it. So you could take Seritage, for example, 18 to $1 million a share, Tom, or is it $23 a share they might get? So
I think 23 might be close.
You take something like Seritage. I wouldn't say the word no, but we all have a high suspicion that potentially within the next year or two, we might be getting $18 to $23 a share at people who own Seritage. And if like the exercise price of an option was like $12 and you paid $1 premium for that, well, the stock's at 18, you exercise at 12, you go buy it for 12, you sell it for 18, you pocket 6, you paid $1. Instead of like going from 12 to 18 and getting like a 40% gain, you made 600 freaking percent. I think I'm just going off the top of my head here. But of course, there's always risk, because what if Seritage decides to just do some kind of huge dividend or something like that, and that doesn't get reflected in the stock price maybe, and you don't get that dividend as a person who paid a premium to buy an option. So risks are all around with this stuff, and I've been trying to learn it, and I've been trying to learn it with a small percentage of my portfolio, because I know the risk is very high. If you're wrong, but I've seen a few situations where either people don't like the business, and I think the business is going to trade for either at the price it is or a little bit higher within 2 years. I like those really long-term options. And the premiums just look cheap. And I run that math and I go, whoa, I could get this kind of return. And I've also seen a few times with these merger workouts where it's like, man, if this thing goes from 26 or whatever it is to 34, and I'm paying $1 premium on a $27 exercise price, it could be like a great return, and it could be fast. But if the deal doesn't happen, or if the deal happened at like my exercise price is 30, if the deal happened at 28 and I can never exercise my $30 option, and it becomes worthless, that's a problem. But I think, Tom, you were wanting to get in there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it sounds like you're mainly doing it on these sort of more binary type situations, which I think is kind of what Greenblatt would do as well.
That's how that he has someone wrote an article about, I think it comes from him, but like Wells Fargo, and their earnings were depressed back in the day, and he thought their earnings were going to come out at X dollar a share, and if they came out at X dollar a share, there was like no way it was going to trade for like 2 times earnings or something like that, and he felt pretty confident. But the key thing with that article was it was a leap. It was like a long-term option, and those go out like, sometimes they can go out 2 years. So that really lessens, in some cases, the risks that, oh, it'll trade below my exercise price and I can't exercise it. But again, you could be wrong about your view of the potential exercise price. But I've been seduced, basically, Jack. I've been absolutely seduced here. And but there have been situations, Tom, with like Alibaba where it was just totally beat up. And the deep in the money options were a cheap premium.
Which that approach has effectively just been kind of leveraged long the stock.
Totally it, because like if Alibaba was 70 and the premium was 7 or whatever, and you put down like $700, instead of buying 10 shares, you could buy the right to whatever that math is, I guess 100 shares. Yeah. And if it goes up, it just, you get a lot bigger benefit than owning the stock. But I really love that situation, because it just didn't seem like Alibaba over a more than 2 year period, it was like 25 months or something, was going to trade below or stay below 50, 70, whatever it was. But
interesting.
I mean, be careful, Jason.
Yeah, don't get too seduced. Downside first.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Focus on the downside first. And I know there's been bad stories about options in the past. I focus on one specific type of option where what I'm putting at risk, my maximum loss is the premiums I'm paying. And the premiums I'm paying is my choice in the portfolio.
You could be far more reckless, of course.
And that's why I haven't, even in the past, I don't really like talking about options. But I mean, my portfolio will come out in like July, and some of it is options. But I very much focus on the only ones where you put in your premium on that call when you buy the call, and it gives you a nice would be your max loss, and that's totally controllable. And in full disclosure, part of the bet, and this is the funny part, I said, well, you know what? I'm putting in 1%, 3%, maybe a little higher than that, whatever the percentage was. If it doesn't work out, Racist will just go up and pay for it over the next, I don't know, year or two. Hey, it went up in the last month and already paid for it. So
you could have just bought more Racist with the options money, or buy Racist.
I don't know if I'm allowed to buy more Racist than I bought. I have to check into the rules. So before I buy more races,
Before you buy 30% of the company.
I don't know.
We did get a super chat from Jonathan, and he issues a warning. I've traded a lot of options in the past. Zero-sum game! Exclamation point! Missing a sad exclamation point at the end.
Well, Jonathan, we're putting on a show here. Punch Card Investing. It's a world. I mean, this is a big show. And guys, if news comes out that Arconic gets bought at like, I don't know, $41, $45, wouldn't that be funny? Wouldn't that be a good time if I come back here and I say I took?
We're rooting for you, Jay. We're always rooting for you.
Thank you.
But you're part of the family. We want what's best for you. and the people are concerned. Sometimes they're very vicious when they're concerned, but that's all it is. It's very foreign to a lot of folks, the options game.
I don't know if this is accurate or not, but there's something in my head where it was either a Monish lecture or it was a book I read, but at some point I remember hearing and again, I could be wrong. Someone was talking to Charlie Munger, or he was talking, and they asked him about Buffett back in the early days. And he said something to the effect of like leverage, options. He did it all, something like that. And there's a great recent Charlie quote. What is it, Tom? Young men know the rules. Wise old men know when to break them.
Something like that. Yeah.
There will not be a horn tooted louder than if this deal gets done. I come back here and we get a nice back. No, I'm kidding. We'll talk about it. It'll be
Just
fun.
Be careful.
It'll be one little pat on the back, and then we'll move on.
I will say to that, but Buffett did. I believe he was selling a ton of options around the financial crisis, which often gets overlooked. Options definitely can be a useful tool for a value investor in particular. I like to think selling options makes a bit more sense for given the framework. Going long options is a bit of a different game.
It's a totally different game. I've watched your videos, Tom, with Matt Peterson, and learned a lot from those videos, and the kind of I don't know if it's locked in, but the kind of you know what kind of return you're going to get versus the other side things where you're basically the stock, you need it to move up just like it would be, or similar to when you buy stock, and you want that same thing to happen, but the upside is a lot higher, but the downside is also a lot larger versus that other stuff. Fascinating stuff.
Well, before we ruffle any more feathers, we should probably wrap up shortly. I mean, I wish you the best of luck with this, Jason. I'm not going to follow you long into it, but no,
I wouldn't want.
But
the only thing I want to happen is someone to buy that company. But I'm just sharing my interesting situation.
Jason, we've got a serial acquirer on this stream actually. If you want someone to buy it.
Yeah, I'm in the market for an aluminum company. It's very vital to our cleaning operations.
Yes. Jack, do you have $4 billion lined up?
Yeah. I mean, you just go to a couple banks, be like, hey.
Yeah, they're in a good mood this week.
Say, hey, you got $4 billion liquid, or just created out of thin air. That's how banks really do it. $4 billion of credit.
Yeah, we're finding that out.
Yeah, just send it over to this other bank. And then we'll
I mean, we're all trying to make money here, Jack. And I mean, what do you want? You want me to buy treasuries? I mean, that doesn't seem that safe either.
Yeah,
I mean,
buy
what do people do out here?
1.6%, buy 88 billion and 1.6% 10-year treasuries, or more. I think it's listed as mortgages, bonds. Buy those. That worked well. All I can say is, Jason, just be careful. But it sounds like you're acknowledging the downside risk, which is all you can really do with options. See the upside, acknowledge the downside.
Yeah, bet sizing and knowing your full risk that you're taking and how much you could lose, and then bet sizing.
The hardest part is that it just, because of the time decay, you're introducing the short term into it, which is just so random at times, and that's where going to be great pause. But we'll see how it goes. That's all you can really say about any of these, especially these kind of
I mean, I get to Jack.
Special situations
No matter who's on that week, I mean, we got to go 6 if all 5 of you guys here. If this deal happens, like I got to come back that week, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
you mean if it's announced? Yeah.
I'll just fund super chats all episode long. Like, hey, it's me again. Oops, I hit it again. Oops, my bad.
I wouldn't object to that, but box. I mean, it's a little obnoxious, but it's in our favor, so it's fine.
So you guys look like a lot of activity tonight with the super chats. That's cool.
Yeah, we did. The people were very supportive today. People are always supportive, but they were very supportive today.
Good. We had a lot of super stickers today.
Yeah, Tom was. So we can't see them on StreamYard. So Tom had a second tab up with YouTube just to see what they were.
Translate them. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess with that said, if you really want to prove your support for the channel, we appreciate the super chats as always, but you really want to subscribe if you haven't already. If you can subscribe, that is a true vote of confidence for the channel, and it shows that you really support us. So we'd very much appreciate that. And you won't miss next week's episode since we put a new episode out every single week, or at least we try to. Pretty close to it. Every now and then we have to bail because it's too many schedules to coordinate, or stuff's going on, or whatever. But if you like what you see here, and even if you don't like it, and you just want to be angry in the comments, like that's cool too. We appreciate the views. That always helps us out. Smash the like button if you did like it, and if you didn't like it, you can still smash the like button. That helps us out too. And check out all the stuff in the description below. But until next time, everyone, see you.
Thanks for tuning in to Punch Card Investing. The contents of this show should not be used as investment advice or as a recommendation to invest in a particular security. Please consult with a licensed investment advisor if you need investment advice. All investments carry risk and the potential for monetary loss. Thank you, and see you next week.